My name is Tony Gale. I'm a commercial photographer here in New York. I'm a Manfrotto ambassador. Manfrotto distributes Bowens. I'm also a Sony Artisan of Imagery and NXRite Colorati, and the APA National President. I shoot primarily people and portraits for whoever hires me. Advertising, editorial, corporate. If somebody has a budget, I'll probably do it. And I've been doing that. Well, I haven't had a real job since 1997. I started out assisting. So Bowens is a brand that, how many people are familiar with Bowens? Just raise your, all right, most of you. I first got exposed to Bowens in the late 90s in Seattle when I was assisting, when half the photographers I worked with had Calumet travel lights, which are Bowens. Calumet doesn't exist anymore, but Bowens still makes excellent lights. So while I'm waiting for that to come up, a couple of the things that are good about Bowens, their price point is excellent. So with lights, with strobes, there's a spectrum. You can spend, there's probably strobes that are less than $100, and then you can spend as much as you want. If you have all the money in the world, you can spend it. Bowens is at the affordable end while still maintaining excellent color consistency, which is one of the trade-offs you often have with inexpensive lights, is that shot 1, it's a little warm, shot 2, it's a little cool, shot 3, it's a little cool again, then it's back to warm, then it's back to neutral, which is fine if you only need 1 frame. But if you're shooting, like I do, portraits, and you're delivering 200 shots or 400 shots, or if I'm shooting for a catalog, 2,000 shots, if the color varies between frames, it's a problem. I can't tell the client, sorry, you're just going to have to color correct everyone individually. It doesn't work that way. So that's an excellent thing that they have. And then the consistency and power output is another trade-off you sometimes have with less expensive strobes, is that this one, it's perfect. The next one, it's a little dark. The next one, it's a little bright. And again, that consistency, if you don't have it, is a problem. All right. How many of you have ever wanted to be a photo assistant? All right, well, you're in the front row, so we'll start with you. How familiar, are you familiar with metering? All right, so we won't have you do that. But, so we're going to start with this light. Come on up. What's your name?
Jim.
Jim?
Mm-hmm.
Jim is going to be my photo assistant at the beginning. So to start out with, we're going to move this light. Mm-hmm. Just be gentle. And we're going to put it right here. And let me have you step forward a little. Not quite that far. Right there. This is a secret trick that only I use that I know of. Pennies, nobody ever picks up a penny because they're not worth anything. So that's what I use to mark where a model is if I don't want to put tape down. So that's your mark.
I said good, it sets up.
Yeah, it's perfect. So let's put the light right here. Point it right at Melanie. Let's lift it up. So, yeah, just, yeah, that's good. So in general, when I'm raising light stands, I like to use, depending on how high I'm going to go, I'll use the lower ones if I know I'm not going all the way because they're more stable. But if you don't know how high you're going to go, you want to start with the littler ones, the higher ones, because then you can get it higher. So let's do this. Make sure everything is, something's, here we go. Turn it on. Oh, whoops. Am I not on? I'm plugged in, right?
Yep.
Oh, it is on. I can't see, apparently. Close your eyes for a sec. All right. So how many of you have meters? How many of you use your meters? Okay, everybody who raised your hands twice, you're all good people. The rest of you, you have some work to do on yourselves. You know, go home, think about it. You know, maybe talk to your parents, see how they messed up raising you. So lots of people, especially with digital, aren't using meters. If you're using strobes and not using meters, you're making your life as difficult as it could possibly be. So f8, 125, ISO 100. That was remarkably easy. So we're going to shoot at f8 because that's a nice round number. I always shoot at ISO 100 if I can, no matter how good my camera is at high ISOs, because better is better. All right, so whoops. This is going to be an example of a really awful light. Oh, some of these others fired. That's why. All right. We got some magical fill because I left some other lights on and they fired. So let's try it again. All right, so now this will be terrible light. So she's correctly exposed because we metered. Everything else, it's pretty harsh, right? Some people, young women who've had their makeup done, look pretty good with harsh light. People in their 40s with some little crow's feet around your eyes, we don't look so good with harsh light. But maybe you only have one light. So a couple of simple things you can do. How many of you have collapsible reflectors? How many of you have the 8-in-1 tri-grip? All right, we're cool. You and I. All right. Oh, see, I should have had my assistant. So we're going to put this here. We're going to remeter. So let me have you, since you're my assistant, just hit this little flash button right here.
Oh, okay. Tony, what lens are you using?
I'm using the 70-200 f4G. All right, so we lost 2 stops. So on this side of the light, there's a dial.
Okay.
Turn it up 2 stops. I think that was the 10th dial, wasn't it?
At,
10ths and full stops.
oh, okay. This one up 0.6.
All right, so that's 1/4 of the way we want to go. So over here we've got a full stop dial, right?
So you want 2 full stops?
Yep.
Okay.
So these lights have 2 dials. There's a full stop dial and a 1/10 of a stop dial. So you've got that control there on separate dials. So when you have an assistant, you have to be careful that they're using the right one. With the others, the Gemini 400 RX, it's 1 dial that goes, it's stopless, but it's marked in 1, 2, 6th, I think. 6th, right? So in some ways it's easier, but it's a little easier to have more precise control with this one. All right, you can actually, there's a little green glowing light.
Okay.
If you just pop that. Okay, go up 4/10.
Okay.
You always want to remeter because even though you turned it up, stuff happens. Perfect. All right. So now we're back at 8. By putting that diffusion up, we killed 2 stops of power, but we had plenty of power to go up, so we're doing that. Right here, Melanie. All right, so we have harsh light, much softer light. You still have the contrast, you still have the range from highlight to shadow, but the transition is much nicer, right? And that's just as simple as adding a piece of diffusion in front. It could be this. It could be, I've seen people use things like sheets. You can buy rolls of stuff. You can use whatever you need to. I like this because it's easy, and I have it with me all the time. But you have options. So that's 1 light. But it would be nice to have more than one light, right? Would be for me. So let's move this over there. Over there. We're just going to get it out of the way for right now. We're going to put this little octabank on instead. So with the Bowens, if you're not familiar with them, it's just a little switch here. It's a bayonet mount. So it's really, really stable. I'm sure you've all experienced some strobes where it's a little wonky putting modifiers on. Like sometimes it feels stable, sometimes it feels kind of stable. With these, you know you're on there and they don't fall off. Unless that's your thing. If you like it to be more exciting because you don't know what's going to happen, then maybe it's not right for you. Just put it on, twist, it clicks, you're in. All right, so I'm going to move this a little bit right here. Let me have you pop it for me again. Go ahead. All right, 8-1. So this octabank with an inner baffle and the outer diffusion, because it's a much more efficient thing than just putting a piece of diffusion in, we're at the same metering we were with the diffusion, despite having 2 layers. So the diffusion was 1 layer. This is 2 because there's an inner baffle and an outer diffusion, because it's just a more efficient thing. As you could see, because you were all sitting there, we lost a lot of light bouncing off of the diffusion, lighting all of you, I'm sure, very nicely. But I didn't have a camera pointing that way. So it's nice to have the option of something a little bit better. Excellent. All right, so this is the octabank. It's a little similar to that, right? A little bit more contrast. I also moved it a little because I liked it a little more to the side. But it's a similar feel, right? Because they're about the same surface size. I didn't need that meter. The front of the octabank and the front of the diffusion are similar in size, so it should give you a roughly similar quality of light. The shape is going to affect it, but all right, but the background is feeling a little murky. So let's add a light to the background. All right, you've been an excellent assistant. We're going to give somebody else a chance. All right, who else wants to be an assistant? All right, you were like almost the first person in the room. So come on up. So we're going to take this. How do you feel about putting it on there?
Not too bad.
All right. So we're going to put this on here and point it at that.
Okay.
Just line it up.
Okay.
So this
that
this
goes in.
rotates, so you can, and put it right in.
And then twist it.
Yep. Towards you.
Towards me.
Yep.
Okay.
You heard it click.
Yep.
All right. Excellent job. You're not done yet. Somebody has to pop the light for me.
All right. This one.
Well, so now we have a thing. When you're lighting, do you want to meter each light individually, or are you going to want to light it cumulatively? So depending on the situation, I will sometimes turn off each light, meter each one, and then turn everything on and meter again. We're not going to do that this time. We're just going to leave everything on. But we still want to meter individually.
I think this one's off.
So let's turn it on. Switch up. Yep, you got it. All right, so go over here to the green button.
Mm-hmm.
They should both fire. Just pop it for me. Yep. All right, so we know that this is 8-1. So let's see what the background is here. So pop it again. 8-2. 1/10 of a stop difference is, you can't ask for much more than that. That should make you happy. So let's see. Da-da-da. All right, so it's getting a little bit of a reflection. I feel like it's a little too bright, even though it metered correctly. Although it feels a little more natural. So everybody raise your hand. I would turn this light down a little so it feels less. Who agrees with me? Raise your hand. Okay, who disagrees with me? Wow. I teach lighting to college students once a week too. I never have that kind of agreement, ever. I'll say something and everybody will be like, oh, I don't know. I really like the out of focus, blurry bit. I'll be like, really? So I'm just going to turn it down a bit. Let's try it again. Yeah, that's a little better. So this feels a little bit like a backdrop to me because it's so much darker, right? That one's a little too bright. This is starting to feel a little better. But, so let's add some more light. Let's make it a little more interesting. So, let's take this, put it right where that box is.
This one?
Yep.
Okay. Facing which way?
Right at our model.
Okay.
We're going to add a little edge light. So it feels a little like we're using a backdrop. And part of the reason for that is we have these bright lights in the background that aren't affecting our subject. If we were actually shooting out on the street and we had lights that bright, you'd see them, right? There'd be some rim light. So raise it up a little.
Okay.
And back, you can push that box out of the
Okay.
way. Yeah, put it right back there.
Good.
A little bit higher, and then aim it straight in. Oh, this is going to be super fun for all of you. It's pointing right at you. Let's put it on the other side.
Okay.
Unless people would like to be blinded by strobes, by the power of the strobe. Anybody? No. Everybody agreed with me a minute ago, but nobody wants to be blinded. I don't know. All right, let's start there. So turn it on. All right.
Yeah.
So let's pop it. 16.6. So it's 2.5 stops brighter than our overall exposure. So I would call that a little too bright. So let's turn that down 2 stops.
So that 5, so.
So if it was at 5, you'd go to 2.
Okay.
That would be, whoops, I'm sorry. That would be 2 stops. All right, so let's pop it again. All right, it didn't fire. Pop it on there. All right, that went down too far. Go up 1 stop.
Okay.
Let's try it again. 8.5, perfect. So for those of you who could see, I was shading the meter with my hand. That was to block the light from the other lights, so I was just metering 1. All right, you ready? All right, so now we have that edge that feels a little like that light back there is creating a highlight. Does that feel a little more real? Not super real, admittedly, but real-ish. So one of the things that might make it more real is if our front light was a little higher and a little more directional. So what we're going to do, we're going to swap out this octabank for a beauty dish with a grid. You want to?
Yep.
Yep. So you want to be gentle with any strobe, but especially the strobe tube and the modeling light are exposed. So when you're pulling things off, you want to be really careful to not hit them. You did fine.
Got me a little nervous.
But, you know, modeling light, I don't know, $30, not the end of the world. Strobe tube, 300, 2 and change. It's not the end of the world, but it would be a drag. For me, at least. Just set it over here. Maybe some of you, you're like, $250, that's what I spent on lunch. Who cares? But for the rest of us, I'd rather not spend that money if I could avoid it and just buy some cool new lighting modifier and then twist it towards you.
I think it's the other way.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not.
Yep, got it. So let's raise it up and point it down. Is it pointed right at you?
Yeah, it's like a little up. No, like bring it to your right. Yeah.
All right. All right. So let's test that.
Rough day.
Our makeup artist has some notes. 564. Okay, so turn it up half a stop. Yep. So on your right, you have the 10 style.
So is that 0.8? So right? Go to 0.9.
That's try it. So 0.8 to 0.9 is 1/10.
Oh, okay. So put it up.
So you want to go another 2 clicks.
Okay, there we go.
One more.
Then you'd have to go to 3.
That's fine.
Okay.
Interesting. Go down one again.
On the stops or the 10s?
Tenths.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. So when you're metering, an important thing, let me have you do that again. You have to make sure you're metering in a consistent spot, which I wasn't so well. So if I meter here, go ahead. I have 8.1. What I've seen many people do is they meter here. So I'm about 8 inches from her face. Now I'm at 8.3, so I'm almost a third of a stop difference, which means if I set my camera to 8.3, her face is going to be underexposed a third of a stop. If you're shooting in RAW, it's not the end of the world, but why not get it right? Does anybody not want to get it right? There's a trick. Nobody raised their hands. Okay. So let's see how it looks. Right here. All right, so that feels a little bit more like light that might be out on the street, right? I think it's a little too far to the side. The shadow from your lock of hair is a little intense. So we're going to move it a little bit more to the front. Is it pointed right at you?
Yeah.
All right, and now it's in my frame. Can I have you back it up a little? Right in front of, a little closer. Don't do it like that. No, that makes me nervous. All right, that's good. All right, right here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So, something that I did that you probably shouldn't do is this stand is really more of a background stand. I use this stand with the smallest footprint for this heavy thing. You shouldn't do that, especially when I had the choice of all these other stands. But I did. I could just do the right thing and put a better stand on it. Or I should rephrase it, not a better stand, a more appropriate stand. So let's do that. So it should be fine. But let's take the stand that has the reflector. Let's just swap them out. It's an example of what not to do. One of the things I learned in all the years I was assisting and then when I started shooting, I realized that when I was assisting, there are things that I would never let slide. And then you start shooting, and they're like, oh, it'll be fine. And if you don't have a good assistant with you to do what I used to do. So, all right, so you unscrew it, and then there's a little button on the side.
Okay, wasn't sure. Never used this stamp before.
So this just unscrews and lift it up. So this is why this stand is designed for backgrounds and low things. And I put a heavy light that I didn't have balanced properly on it. That was all so you could learn. It wasn't because I was slacking off at the beginning. It was a learning experience so that you could all become better, more experienced photographers by observing the real world implications of doing things incorrectly. I swear, it was all intentional. Right here. All right. Whoop. Oh yeah, let's turn it on. That's another trick, is if you turn it on, it works better. That's pretty universal, any strobe. If you turn it on, you're more likely to get light out of it. All right, so let's see how this looks. All right, so we've got the highlight from that backlight, which feels like that street light a bit, right? We've got the beauty dish with the grid. All right, let's have you face this way 3/4. Turn your face towards me.
3/4.
Yeah, your body's 3/4. All right, drop your arms. Maybe put your back hand on your hip. Backhand, left hand. Up, like this.
My direction.
Yeah.
Is not very good.
Just hold up your hand. So L is left.
Wait, I used to have to do that. True story. So just this one.
Yep. So I think that backlight's a little too much. So let's get, who else wants to be an assistant? Oh, at the beginning, like 10 people raised their hands. Now it's scary. Nobody else wants to do it.
All right.
All right, so that backlight, let's move it a little more towards the window. You can see how it's hitting her cheek. It's a little hot. It feels, because her face is turned, it doesn't feel like it's coming from the back. So that should help. Let's see. Right to me, Melanie. Okay, so the light's hitting her hair now, and you can just see a piece of it, of the actual light in the background. Here it was hitting her cheek. It felt wrong. Like, where is it coming from? Who knows? Here it's coming from the back. Make sense? Okay, so if you're shooting fashion, or for a catalog, for example, or whoever, it's about the clothes. The model matters in the sense that they are wearing clothes. We still love you. It's okay. But it's about the clothes. So she's wearing a black sweater. We still have detail everywhere, but a little bit more might help. You know, printing being what it is, who knows? You don't want it to get muddy. So let me have you come stand right in here and just hold this in as a little bit of a fill. Probably right on the edge. So we're adding a little reflector as a fill because if you are shooting fashion, the clothes matter more than anything. The model should look good, but if the model looks great and the clothes don't look good, you have an unhappy client. If you have an unhappy client, they don't call you again. Pretty soon, you're never working again and you're cooking at Denny's. And I did cook at Denny's for a year and a half, and it's not really a dream job if anybody's curious. It's fine. I learned how to flip eggs. But it's probably not anybody's goal. All right, right here. All right, so if you look at the sweater, there's more detail now. So can everybody see that? I don't know how this look like. I don't know how things are reflecting, but whoop, you can't see it now. There's a trick. You all fell for it. So we've got a little bit more detail. You can see the texture. For a fashion shoot, that's extremely important. All right, but now we've sort of built something. It's pretty straightforward. Maybe not the most exciting shot we've ever done. So let's make it a little more interesting. Does that sound good? Okay, so how many of you are familiar with the inverse square law? All right. So the inverse square law basically says as you move a light closer, the fall off increases dramatically. What's useful about that is as you move the light closer, it also becomes softer and the fall off increases more dramatically. So if you have a very, very large light source and you move it really, really far away, it's no longer soft. So if, for example, you had a 20 by 20 foot silk, which would be pretty soft if it were right here, right? Everybody agree that 20 by 20 foot light, pretty soft? If you move it 200 yards away, it is now a very small light source, and it becomes hard. If, as an example that everybody knows, the sun, very, very big, right? However many bazillion miles across it is, really big, is 93 million miles away. Because it's 93 million miles away, it is a very hard light source, even though it's enormous. If it were much closer, it would be really soft. It would also cook us all, and we wouldn't notice. But it would be soft. So any light is the same. As it gets closer, it's softer. The fall off is more dramatic. As it moves further away, the fall off is less dramatic, but it becomes harder. I usually have to argue a little with people about that who insist that I'm wrong, but I promise you I'm not. Photography is in many ways subjective, and there's a million ways to do everything, and no one person is right if they say this is the only way, but bigger and closer, softer, further away, harder. Okay, so let's start by, let me have you move forward a little. Let's bring the penny. Right there. So we're going to move this right on top of you. Wait, don't go. I have to remeter. Yep, green button. 11. All right, so we're going to shoot at 11. And to give you an example of inverse square, so right here is 11, and then right here, well, that doesn't seem right. Right here. Okay, that's not right. Let's try it one more time. 11. Okay, something is not right there. It's consistent here. For some reason, the meter was telling me half as I moved closer, which means that something I was doing was wrong. I'm not sure what, but there's no way that moving closer to the light makes it darker. Unless your light is smarter than you and changing things when you're not looking. You know, the rise of the machines and robot overlords and all that stuff. All right, so I'm just going to turn off the other lights. So one thing when you're working with multiple lights that I would really encourage you to do is do one at a time. It's really easy, like on that very first shot when I forgot that the other lights were on. It's really easy to have a bunch of stuff going on. You want to change things and you're not really sure what's going on. It gets murky, it gets messy, and by having everything firing at once instead of building, it can be difficult to troubleshoot and figure out. So if you start one light at a time, you know this light is doing this. I add a light, it's doing whatever that first light wasn't, et cetera, et cetera. Make sense? All right, so F11. All right, a little bit different, right? I actually like that light. So we made it much more dramatic. By moving the front light close, we have radically decreased the amount of light on the background, both because the front light is a grid, but also because it's much, much closer to our model. So the difference in amount of light between our model and our background has increased. That makes sense to everybody? If we move the beauty dish back and then remeter, we'll get more light on the background because of the inverse square law. This is a really powerful thing to internalize because there are situations where you don't want the background to be lit. So if you know that by moving your main light closer, the background gets further, or I'm sorry, it gets darker, it's a powerful tool. I'm sure that I'm the only person in the room who ever has to shoot in places where the background is ugly and you wish it would go away. I'm sure all of you only get to shoot in cool places with awesome backgrounds. Right? Right, everybody? Okay, so let's start by adding some light back to the background. So it's cool and dramatic, but we want a sense of place. So let's turn this back on. Power switch is right. Yep, right there. Up. So all of these, if you're using them, let me show you on this one. This power switch has 3 positions. Up is on, middle is off, down is on if there's a battery attached. So all of these can be plugged into an external battery and run off of a battery if you have it. And that little thing that looks a little bit like an old school serial printer port is the battery input. Probably shouldn't use old serial printer cables for it though. Probably. Who knows? Okay, so let's meter that background.
You want to turn this off?
No. We know that the front is F11. Four 6. So let's turn it up. Let's turn it up a stop. Let's make it a stop and a half down. So 5, 6, 8. So down 1 click. Five, 6 and a half. Okay, so our background is metering at 5, 6 and a half. Our front is at F11. I'm going to start with a stop and a half difference because, well, I don't want it as dark as this. I don't want it super bright either. I want sort of a middle. So I'm starting a stop and a half down is probably going to be darker than I want. But I'd rather start at the edge and start there, make it a little brighter and see how it is, than start somewhere in the middle and then go backwards. That's kind of a subjective thing, but it's the easiest way for me. How's it going, Melanie?
Great.
You're doing great. Right to me. All right, so there is more background. You can tell that it's a place. I do think it's a little dark. How many people think it's dark? Anybody think it's too bright? Anybody think it's perfect? All right. Photography is subjective. You could be right, and I could be right. We could both simultaneously be right. All right, let's turn it up a half a stop and see how that is. So it'd be 3 clicks. Still feels a little too dark to me. We're also getting a little reflection. So let's turn it up another half a stop. And I'm just going to twist it a little. All right, let's see how this does. Still feels too dark. All right, so let's try another half stop. Makeup artists going in. They do that. All right, it's feeling a little bit better. You're looking very intense.
Sound out.
All right, look right at me. Relax your arms. All right. Now again, if this were fashion, the sweater is probably too dark. So let me have you, we'll see if this does enough. We've got an assistant for that. You're the model. You just have to stand there and model. All right, let's see how that looks. Not much. So we have 2 choices. Well, we have really infinite choices, but we're going to talk about 2 because I don't have time for infinite. We can remove the grid, which will create more spread. So for those of you who can't see, this beauty dish has a grid on it. What the grid is doing is limiting the spread of the light. So we're controlling where it goes. It allows you to hit exactly what you want to hit. But because of that, it's not hitting the sweater. So we can remove the grid. That'll give us a bigger spread. Or we can add another light. For our purposes, I'm going to add another light because then it gives you a little bit more control. If we take the grid off, we do get a bigger spread. It will hit the sweater, but we can't control the difference between the sweater and her face. So if we add a light, we can make it as dark or as dim as we want and just sort of inch it up until it's just enough to get the texture we want. Make sense? So I have 4 lights. Where's... Oh. All right, so let's get... There's a light behind there.
Okay. We're not using those?
Nope. We're going to put it right in here in low. So one thing I would normally do is see how I have chords everywhere in here? If you can't see, there's cords all over the place up here. Normally, we would tape all of these down. If you're on a set like this and there's cords everywhere, tape things down because there's people running around. Best case scenario, it's annoying. Worst case scenario, somebody breaks a light or breaks a nose. Neither of which do I want to be responsible for. The smart thing, if you're using something that might be unstable, aside from potentially sandbagging it, is to put one of the legs in the direction that the weight is. So I have a leg facing Melanie in the direction that the octobank is, so it's really hard for it to fall that way. If I put it in between, it's really easy to tip. All right, let's see what this is. So, hit the little green button for me. And actually, we're going to tilt it down just a little. All right. Go ahead. Although you know what? We're not on the mark. So let's back it up a little. And just be careful, your toes right under the cable. Back it up a little bit more. I'm sorry, move the stand back a little bit more. Yeah. Thank you. All right, perfect. Let's pop it. 11.5. So let's turn it down to stop.
Stop. Okay.
8.5. All right, so right now that's metering half a stop less than we're shooting, so we'll start there.
Trapped.
You're trapped. That was the whole plan. It was all a trick. A little bit, but I think we need more. So let's turn it up a half a stop.
So that's 3 clicks.
Yes. No, 5 clicks. So the right is tenths, the left is full. You're doing fine. It's just like a normal shoot, except there's 40 people here, and I'm changing light constantly. Wow. All right, that sweater's sucking up light like crazy. You know what? Is it firing? No. That would be the problem. Okay. If you wonder why light power isn't changing, just make sure your light is firing. It's probably going to be too bright now, but we'll see. All right, so what it is doing is filling your face in a way that I don't love. So let's turn it, twist it down, angle it down. Yep, let's try that. And let's turn it up another stop. All right, I'm just going to look. All right, so we went from 6s, just in case everybody can see. This is giving me my RGB values. So when we started, we were at 6s, 7s, 5s in the sweater. Even though it doesn't feel like there's a lot of detail, we're now in the 15s. So for something that's black, that's probably enough. There are times, especially when you're looking at things on a laptop, which is not the best monitor in the world, or a television screen, which may be profiled, but it's still not as accurate as a really calibrated computer monitor. Checking your numbers is helpful. So one important thing that I neglected to do, because my assistants didn't remind me, you're all fired, is a gray card. So let me have you hold this. How many of you use gray cards? Okay, 5 of you I'm happy with. The rest of you I'm very, very disappointed in you. If you used meters but not gray cards, I'm only somewhat disappointed in you. So gray side. So what everybody knows what a gray card does, right? It allows me to make sure that my color is accurate. All right, now the color will be better. Let's do one more. Right to me, Melanie. Yeah, see, we should have done that at the beginning. Look at that skin tone. I think this skin tone is better, right? It doesn't, as long as you do it, it doesn't matter. You can apply it. As you change your lighting, you should do new gray cards because different modifiers may have a different color cast. And then it also, if you're changing your power substantially, it could also change your color. So just something to be aware of. If you're changing things a lot, do lots of gray cards. All right, so we're going to do one more thing where I just make light that I think is cool. And then it'll be an opportunity for you guys to check out the stuff and get hands-on. Let's take this, put it all the way back in the corner where the box is, point it at Melanie. Let me get one more assistant. Who else wants to? Really? All right. Let's point this light at Melanie where it is. Nobody trip on any cords. It will make me sad. All right, let's angle it this way just a little. Yep. You have to point it right at your head. Just look back at that light. Right at you. Okay. So we're going to start with those two. Is that one on?
Yeah.
So the switch goes up. Yep. We're going to start by metering. So let me have you fire first.
This is at the highest.
Okay, 22 is a little bit brighter than we need. So let's go down 3 stops to 8. All right, try it again. Again. All right, that's 8. And let's up half a stop, please. One more click. Okay, so those are both F8. One thing when you're changing power, you have to give it a little bit of time before you fire it because it has to either dump power or increase the power. So if you fire it too quickly, it's going to give you an inaccurate reading on any strobe. All right, look right at me. All right, let me see. You just change the... Let me see if this is... You said 0 and 2 are my channels?
It should be 1 and 2. Yeah.
1 and 2. Okay. All right, well, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to start out really dramatic, but we're going to wait a second. Just yet. So I'm turning this down. All right. All right, so mostly this is to see how the background light is, and we're going to adjust this as we need to. Oh, wrong transmitter. We have different things on different transmitters, so we're going to try and make it so two people can shoot simultaneously when you guys are hands-on, but it's confusing me right now because I forgot how they said it up for me, even though they were nice enough to do it. All right, so that light, let's raise it up physically. Yep, and then point it down a little so it's right at her head. Sorry to talk about you in the third person.
Really cool.
I think so. Let's see. All right, that's better. And then let's raise this one up just a hair and angle it so that the top is out a little bit more than the bottom. Just make sure that it's stable when you do that. A little bit higher. Yep. And then there's a little dial on the side that will allow you to loosen it on the bracket.
And you want the top closer in?
Yep. A little bit more. Right there. All right, so what I'm doing right now, for those of you who didn't notice, is we're changing the hair. So that's where we started. That's better, right? A little bit better still. All right. Now this light. Let's move this a little bit more to the side. Yep. And let's take off the beauty dish. Or I'm sorry, let's take off the grid. Yeah, let's try that. So on the front, we have the grid. If you pull on the little white tab, which is on the top, yep. Yeah, they're always in there nice and sturdy. All right, and we're definitely going to have to remeter that. Oh, there was a sock in there. Oh. Sorry again, please. Oh, I put it on ambient for no good reason. Again. Again. 16.5. So let's turn it down 2 stops. Or a stop and a half, I'm sorry. So you've got full stops.
That's 1.
And then tenths.
5.
Yep. Let's try that. 11.5. Another half stop.
Down.
Yep.
Hold on. Okay, that's as much as I can go down.
Okay. So what you can do, that's all right. But if you can't go down enough on the 10th side, you can always go down a full stop on the full side and then up on the 10th side.
I got you.
All right, let's see how that looks. All right, we're adding some drama. Let's put the sock on it since we have it. So we're definitely going to have to remeter because we're killing some light. Pop it for me. 8.5, so up half a stop. So we lost half a stop with the sock. Okay. 11.1, perfect. All right, so you can see the difference the sock made, right? Whoops. And that's how different it looks when it's completely different. So no sock, sock. All right, let me have you turn this way a little, and then eyes to me. See, that's starting to look nice. All right, but we're going to add one more light for a tiny bit of fill. All right, who wants to assist that hasn't yet? Wow. All right. F minuses for the rest of you. It's definitely going to be reflected in your grade. All right, so we're going to put this head on that stand.
On this one?
Yep. And let's put it right next to the TV at head height, pointed right at her. Just step forward over the cable. And then back to your spot. Thank you. And let's tilt it so it's level. So right here. Yep. Up, up. Perfect. And now let's turn that one on. Yep. Let's see where we're at with that. Just pop the green button for me. 8.7. Let's turn it down a stop. Oh, it's down. So you can go down all the way there. Oh, we might be in the basement. Try it again. All right, so that's as low as it'll go. Oops, I'm sorry. You need a nap already? So turn this way again, 3/4, and eyes to me. Did that one fire? No. I think I have the optical slave off. So when you're on a set assisting, if the light doesn't go, you got to tell the photographer. Oh, it's not seeing the slave. All right, so there's a tiny bit. Okay, so we've added just a tiny bit of fill, which honestly I don't like. I liked how it was before. So let's move that light back out. I changed my mind.
Shut it off or take it out?
Turn it off and take it out, because it is going to fill a little, even if it doesn't fire, because of that white. But you know what? Maybe if we do it, let's try putting it there and point it at Melanie. Just watch the cord. Let's turn it back on. On the back where it says cell, right next to the switch, turn that down. All right, so one of the tricky things with optical slaves is the slave has to see the light, and I'm compacting my light so much that it can't see it. All right, so you can just turn it off. All right, so look right at, turn this way again. Your whole, yep. Perfect. Let's lower that light so people can see the TV. I think that's nice. I like that.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.